Happy Jackie Robinson Day, happy tax day, and welcome to Prime Suspects. Alongside Adam Bjorn and Prime Sports co-founder Joe Brennan Jr., I'm your host, Matt Landis. Not much baseball or taxation representation on today's rundown. Instead, a recap of the Masters, a preview of the World Cup, and a discussion on some headlines about legislation and automation before we look ahead to the NBA and NHL playoffs. Guys, teeing it off with some history made at the 90th Masters. Joe, just when we thought your reign as the mayor of Toutville was at its end, you're back in office after predicting Rory McIlroy to win another green jacket last week, becoming the fourth ever repeat champion and the second in the last 50 years to go wire to wire.
I'd like to say that I had a very complex model a la Rufus Peabody in order to be able to project this outcome, but it comes down to laziness, brand awareness, and borderline contempt for a silly game of guys and polyester clothes chasing a white ball around a very nice walk in the woods. But yeah, I mean, congratulations to Rory. And yeah, I'm interested to hear what our results were like. Especially with his dip there on the final day on Sunday. I'm sure everybody in game was like, oh, there goes Rory. Time to cash in. Let's jump on top of him. So I'd be very interested to hear from Adam how that played out.
And we'll get to that in just a moment, but I will note, speaking of laziness and brand awareness, I went with Scotty Scheffler, and he did post the first bogey-free Masters weekend in 84 years, but came up one birdie short of forcing a playoff with Rory. Adam, your Korean duo of Kim and Im finished back-to-back on the final leaderboard. Unfortunately, those back-to-back spots were 46th and 47th. So overall, how did the Masters fare for Prime Sports and Bet, Chris, and how'd you do in your Calcutta?
Well, I mean, overall, the results were good. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when one picks the favorite, another picks the previous winner, and then I go for 40 and 150 to one shots. But so it goes. I'm all right with that.
What are you trying to say, brother? What are you trying to say? Better that your process is right than your outcome is correct? Okay, I hear you.
No, it was actually, I mean, over the week, it ended up pretty well in a sense of, I did say Scheffler seemed like he was over the odds. He could have won this thing in a canter if he'd gotten out the gates all right. You know, just instead of 10 pars in a row or whatever else, another birdie in there, and Rory would have been shaking in his boots at the end as well had he got to sort of 13 or 14. But results were good. We'll say that. Rory was a good result. He kind of went into it with a strong leaderboard. Everything was looking good. Laid the hell out of Rory after round two when he was like minus 250, 300, something like that. And then he perfectly did what he needed to do on a Saturday and brought everybody back into the race to give us a live betting Sunday afternoon. Sunday afternoon, boy, I mean, the bettors were taking prices that, one, they could have got better on prediction markets. So we do have a player base that should learn to shop around a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it was back and forth. Young looked like he was, two ahead and going to take this thing. Then he fell apart. Rose got ahead. When Rose got ahead, I thought, this is it. Finally, he lost to Garcia. He lost to Rory. Rose is going to collect it. Not going to complain, although the result's not as good as Rory. But sure enough, Rory come back. Rose fell apart. And we ended up getting a couple of exciting last holes as well. But my main thing was Rory did what he needed to do Saturday. Didn't collapse, but, brought the field back in, which made it an easy decision to not follow up my Saturday at Keeneland Racings and had to sit in the motel room and trade this thing live and have a lot of fun watching Sunday afternoon at the Masters, which I think is by far the best Sunday of the year because Breeders' Cup is only Friday, Saturday. So all in all, good weekend. Lost a little bit on the Calcutta. Didn't do that much betting, although one of the tips I'd sort of laid out there was Homer at 300, 350 to 1, and he did all right. So credibility was held up. Results were there. Joe picked the winner. You guys had the exacta. What else can we ask for?
And with that, we will move right along. Adam, we're now on the other side of both the Masters and March Madness, and we're less than 60 days from the World Cup kicking off. So go ahead and give us a peek behind the curtain at how Planetech is preparing at this stage and where the focus will be between now and the tournament getting underway.
So I'll say this. I mean, this entire project, Joe's, beginning with Prime and all this stuff that we've done for the last 4 or 5 years has ultimately been all about the World Cup. Plain and simple, if we put a flag in the ground, and I'd said it for many years, 104 Super Bowls in 40 days and all these things and rah, rah, rah. Are we going to under-deliver? Sure as hell hope not. But I mean, we're fighting through technology issues. We're fighting through the bankruptcy of Prime. We're getting, a whole lot of things trying to come into place while this thing is literally, 8 weeks away. We're rebuilding our CRM. We're replanting the flag in the marketing world and all these kind of things. So right now we don't turn on the light or the cockroaches will scatter. We are hard at work trying to get this thing done. We added a product last week or the week before that added hundreds of soccer props for players and whatnot. So the product is definitely going to be in place when we roll this out. We've got same game parlays on soccer expanding. There is so much being thrown at this event for us that, as I've said, for 4 or 5 years, come end of July, it'll either be boom or bust. We'll be able to say, we've got this, we're moving forward, we know exactly what we're doing in this world. The states are making it as hard as hell to sort of try and make this a viable product. But yeah, right now it is everybody's on deck. There is no vacations. There is no downtime over the next 8 weeks. And we'll be there, ready. I think, June 10th for that first game? It's just oiling the wheel and making sure we get shit right.
Yeah, one thing I'm concerned about is that this has been, our point on the horizon all this time. And I'm starting to get concerned about external factors, not what's going on internally at Prime, what's going on internally at Betcris Arizona. But when you look at, all the reportage right now is saying that attendance looks like it's trending down, overseas visitors, which is a real opportunity, not only for Prime Betcris, but also the entire regulated U.S. betting industry. That looks like it's trending down, because of all the problems with U.S. visas, immigration, the Iraq war, inflation, people just not wanting to come to the U.S. So it is concerning to see when you're pointing at something like that, when things are just factors that are beyond your control, may have an effect on the outcome of that as well.
We'll pivot in a moment. I'll just jump in really quickly because I can't help myself with some real-time research. It looks like June 11th is the date of the first whistle for the World Cup. We were so close, Adam, with that off-the-cuff guess of June 10th. But Joe, let's stick with you. Adam mentioned Prime's origin story and his answer to the build-up to the World Cup, and we can stick with that in a sense because Prime's launch date is back in the news, with Ohio Republican lawmakers calling for sweeping changes to sports betting in the Buckeye State, including a potential outright ban on online gambling. Given that 99% of Ohio's sports betting revenue came from online wagering based on the most recently available data from February, in the birthplace of aviation, this could make for a turbulent landing for sports betting. So, Joe, all in all, what do you make of the latest proposed changes coming out of Columbus?
First of all, it shows you that headlines are everything. When it says Ohio lawmakers, it should be Ohio lawmaker. And that is Bill Blessing, a Republican lawmaker from Ohio, who's also had some prior stabs at this. And, you try not to, engage in ad hominem comments about lawmakers, because other lawmakers in other states, they listen to you, they hear it. There's a fraternity. You don't want to show off a lawmaker. You don't want to refer to him as like an idiot, a dipshit, a horse's ass, or anything like that. But what I would probably say is, I think the best way of referring to Mr. Blessing's legislation and to him is that he is both intellectually and politically, legislatively unserious. You look at this bill, it's inherently contradictory. In no way, shape, or form accomplish the goals, meet the revenue targets that he has. It's just, I don't know. My guess is this is Mr. Blessing running on a values-based platform in his district. I guess he feels like he's throwing red meat to his conservative value voters, and this is his way of doing it. When you look at the coverage of his appearing before the gaming committee in the Ohio legislature, the other lawmakers who were questioning him, they seem to be remarkably skeptical about what he had to say. And there's some real genius stuff that he put in here. And I'm just going to read this one directly because we have to recognize when there's challenges, but we also have to recognize when those challenges are serious and when they're actually kind of ridiculous. State Senator Bill DeMora from Columbus said, if you have more taxes on it, you're going to get less payout. And Senator Blessing's answer to that was kind of ridiculous. He said, when asked by Senator DeMore, he said, "Look, what's to stop sports books from putting this 2% tax back onto the payees of sports bettors?" This was Mr. Blessing's answer. Well, if DraftKings and FanDuel are going against each other, they just can't pass everything on to the bettor. They have to eat that through lower profits because DraftKings can say, well, we can eat a little bit more of this to outcompete you guys. And what that means to me is that not only does Senator Blessing not understand, I don't know, business or economics or gaming, he can't Google either because his neighbor to the west of Illinois, DraftKings and FanDuel, are doing exactly that. They are passing these incremental tax increases directly onto their consumers in the form of per ticket fees. You look at his tax, he wants to do away with mobile betting. He wants to do away with in-game betting. He wants to do away with props. He basically wants pre-game retail betting, but he somehow still wants to generate $200 million in tax revenue off it, even though he's eliminating 99% of his revenue. Mr. Blessing, I understand he's an engineer by trade. I hope he hasn't designed anything I drive, live in, or drive over, like a bridge or something like that, because he doesn't understand math. And an engineer who doesn't understand math is dangerous. I think it's dangerous to elevate a guy like this beyond what he is. He's trying to grab headlines. He's trying to appeal to a values voter, not a rational voter, and he does not have a real tax solution for the state of Ohio. And it sounds like, based on the coverage, the Ohio Gaming Committee in the legislature sees the same thing.
Well, speaking of danger with the potential misapplication of mathematical principles, we can pivot from legislation to large language models because the AI startup General Reasoning released a Kelly Bench report last week that highlights the gap between AI's rapidly advancing capabilities in certain tasks and its ability to predict winning bets. In an experiment tasking 8 different LLMs with picking winners in the Premier League, all 8 lost money, and only 2 of them avoided ruin. Of note, this came the same week several betting tools launched features integrating data directly with popular LLMs like ChatGPT and Claude. So Adam, from a risk management perspective, what have you and the team at Planetech observed in terms of improvements from bettors that could be attributed to the use of AI? And how feasible is it for the average bettor to successfully leverage AI to develop an edge relative to the need for more sophisticated tools and modeling than mass market AI tools currently offer?
So I think the one statement about LLMs is generally you put garbage in, you get garbage out. So this prompting world, the ability to sort of put in the information that you need, I mean, it goes to everybody's models. The best gamblers in the world, again, what data points are they using? What pieces are they drilling down into, ultimately being more successful than others? And a lot of them, you find, will go head to head on certain games because obviously their models just simulate things differently and see numbers that are obviously, again, when you have 2 professionals going against each other, that obviously means whatever the market center point is, they have an opinion that is 2 or 3% either side of that center point. So they have the ability to go back and forth and thinking that their model's right versus the other model. So there's obviously that variance straight away there. But a lot of this is, what did they put into this? So we do know that the best bettors out there are using LLMs. They're using all the variations, all the headline names that you mentioned to do their work a hell of a lot quicker than they did many years ago. I mean, the stuff that I mess around with personally, I'm very sad that I'm the age that I am and don't have an extra, 20 years or whatnot of having all the manual work I've done for the last 30 years, being able to done in seconds and minutes these days versus the days and weeks that I spent on some of these things. But I've used it. It actually can, and I would imagine my 30 odd years of doing this mentally, Excel sheets, other options, being able to put it into these machines and messed around with it for the World Cup qualifying games and actually had some pretty good results. Was I going, balls to the wall, all in, gambling hard? No, I was messing around with it just to see, how to look at it. My best result was probably Jamaica and New Caledonia, which on the top of my head, I looked at it, I'd done the work, I had a very strong idea, put in bits and pieces, how to look at it, the inefficiencies, the efficiencies of the team that I know very well in Jamaica, and sort of how that populated and worked out. So for the average person, I think it's as much the research aspect of it, the ability to ask questions, players, injuries, current runs. I think a few people are using it on golf, and it's really been able to highlight, for the average golf bettor that doesn't have that depth of data to see who's been on a good run, who's been injured 3-4 weeks ago and just come back and things like that. So there's definitely a world up for it. I think, is the average bettor potentially smarter using these things? 100%. But this is a bit like that athletic report a few weeks ago. Is again, what's the basis? What are they putting into it? Is it garbage in, garbage out? Because I imagine someone with, some experience in this world wouldn't be losing at the percentages that they were losing, because that was quite horrific.
And Joe, you've talked in the past about the need to give bettors access to tools and data to help them step up their games. So with the current range of widely available tools, how has the aspirational sharp player segment evolved compared to what you saw when Prime first launched?
I mean, honestly, I don't know that the needle's moved all that much. And I think that a lot of that is the category, player tools is still kind of sorting itself out. There's a couple really good tools that really need to find audience. When we look at that transaction just a couple of weeks ago that involved unabated, that's something where you're talking about a very good tool that is, merging with a company that is very good at this establishing audience. So it'll be interesting to see how that one develops. But I mean, at the same time, a lot of these tools the vast majority of these tools were initially developed by people who really didn't have a lot of experience in their industry. Maybe they are, as Adam said, about these teams that tried to bet the Premier League using AI and kind of crashed significantly. There's a certain amount of judgment that has to be exercised in all of these things. And that's the piece that is absent all of these things. You can give everybody the best tools in the world, but you can give a chisel to an idiot and you can give a chisel to an artist, and which one are you going to get a statue out of? Okay. Some of the people that we know who are active out here, as Adam said, I think the big boon to them is that they're able to do their work quicker. They're able to respond and adjust quicker. So it's a speed thing, maybe more so than necessarily making them better. They're models, the judgment that you have to exercise and what goes into a model, what to leave out of a model, how much weight to it. That's a function of the human brain. That really isn't a function of AI. And, probably the best thing if you want to use an analogy here is, Deep Blue, IBM's chess computer, took a couple of whacks at Gary Kasparov before it was eventually able to beat him in tournament play. You could maybe say the same thing about this is where we're at with AI. It's nascent. Everybody's trying to use it. Everybody's trying to figure out how good it is. But Kasparov was able to prevail in those early days because not only did he have skill, not only did he have his own internal processing, he had judgment, he had experience that he could draw from, and he had a kind of creativity. All those things are things that have yet to really be demonstrated, I think, at least in these, initial experiments that were documented, like in the Financial Times. But does that mean that they won't eventually be ironed out? I mean, you'd have to say, momentum, resources, everything is on the side of AI and the tools crowd. And how do you stay on top of it? How do you utilize it? How do you co-opt it?
And this is about being a bookmaker. Again, if you take one bet from a professional and you move the line, then it's a new line and they're working out what they do next. That's the whole point of this, is you can have the smartest guys in the world. If you have them coming in the front door, you take a bet, you move the number, then the next person comes in, and that's what you do with bookmaking 101 and what we try to do in the sports betting world.
And not shifting all the way back to legislation, but its close relative, regulation, Adam, in a potential foreshadowing of expansion plans, the Massachusetts Gaming Commission has unanimously voted to reopen the sports betting application process following a request from Bet365. As you survey the landscape, which states would you put on a short list of candidates if Prime Sports and BetCris were to expand beyond current markets?
So Massachusetts is definitely one I'd like to look at. If we were more advanced, it's definitely one that I'd looked at previously. I'd spoken with some potential partners there. And for me, living in the offshore gaming world for so long, Boston, Massachusetts is one of the epicenters of sports gambling. I think this is an easy one for them to go in there. And hell, maybe we kick Ohio to the curb and move over to Massachusetts because they want a little bit better job while they have some head-scratching items that they have. They are actually a commission that have, genuine conversations, lay it out there, play it out there, and sort of see where it is. But I mean, right now with all the states, like, where the hell do you go from where we're at right now once we get this intact? Kentucky passing what they passed yesterday, governor vetoed it. They said, F you, we're going to push this through. Makes it interesting, I think, when the prediction market, when this comes up January 27, as into what the sportsbook prediction markets can do. Arizona spoke about this heavily in the beginning of maybe going down this path, but haven't done anything about it. So for me, Massachusetts definitely on the radar. Would love to look at it. But right now we're concentrating on the 4 states we have. And, it's just really hard with what the states are doing right now.
And Joe, sticking with the political powers in play, DraftKings, FanDuel, Fanatics, and Bet365 are funding a sports gambling super PAC with about $48 million in contributions so far. How do you see the super PAC playing out?
Well, one, I wonder why they didn't have this all ready to go alongside the Sports Betting Alliance. It's a necessity. If you're going to have a political action committee, or if you're going to have an advocacy group, you got to have a PAC so that you can do this. I mean, that's the price of admission. So I'm very surprised that it took this long for them to do it. And I think all it is really is an admission that this is going to be a longer, harder battle for them than just showing up in the states. Like, they've been able to skate pretty easily here until now. Getting states to legalize, most of the work was done for them ahead of time. They're just showing up and romancing lawmakers with promises of big numbers. Now that lawmakers are saying, like, well, your numbers weren't as big as you had said that they were going to be, we need to increase your taxes and everything. These guys, that particular alliance has not been politically effective. They've been getting their ass handed to them in practically every state house. So, all this really is an admission that, like, they really got to dig in. They got to get serious. They got to stop being casual about advocating for the industry, because they're losing the battle right now. They really are. It's as much as it's the states that are carrying the battle regarding prediction markets, and an issue that FanDuel, DraftKings, those guys are silent on because they have prediction markets. So, and that seems to be the big thing in the states. But when it comes to raising tax rates and other issues like, the micro bets and props and things like that, they've just been getting their ass handed to them. They really got to start taking this a bit more seriously.
And we'll take things home this week with some basketball and hockey talk at the buzzer. The NBA playoffs being underway with the play-in round, with every playoff team in action this weekend, when the puck also drops on the NHL playoffs. So Adam, from what's on tap this coming week that's on your radar to the book's rooting interest based on where the action is flowing across the NBA and NHL playoffs, what's top of mind for you in terms of the foreseeable horizon?
Yes, I mean, this week we've got NBA playoffs, obviously, Champions League, coming to the end of the soccer seasons. There's still golf this week down the Heritage, tennis moves to the clay, and then you got snooker world championships and NFL draft props popping up as well. So for the NBA futures, right now, worst results are Cleveland and Portland Trailblazers. Actually, looking at it, it's actually a very healthy futures NBA book, because when we look at worst results, Lakers, which 50 odd to 1. So hopefully they're not coming into the calculation. But, the Golden State Warriors are a good result. The Celtics are a good result. So it really isn't a bad book there on the baseball level. On the ice hockey, worst results are Boston Bruins, again, 45 to 1. So that's not anything too worrisome. Carolina, Colorado are both good results. Montreal was a small loser, but again, mid-20s. There's really no one that's in the price range of sort of 10 to 1, 12 to 1 and under that's a losing result right now. So kudos to the traders. It seems like they've traded these futures very well this season. And, at the end of the day, futures are nice and dandy. We'll write more on the series outcomes and then, the final games and whatnot. But yeah, right now, there's no real sweating going into these playoffs for either sport.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot here, but feel free to just go with the book's rooting interest if that suits you best here. Just looking for 2 teams. Who do you have winning the championships when all is said and done across the NBA and NHL?
Well, the NBA, it seems like OKC are just the strongest team, so you got to go with those. And then, it's always good when Boston's involved in it, so that looks like probably the best matchup. Very chalky, whatnot. I haven't gotten too much into the futures this season on this. Again, really spending a lot of time on getting this thing ready for the World Cup. And then the hockey, I mean, I used to love betting futures in the hockey and then the series prices and whatnot. So let me just throw out some darts here. Usually I would have ChatGPT come up with these for me when we notice these segments. But yeah, let's throw out Dallas Stars and making sure this other team's in the other conference because it's been a while since I looked. And Buffalo Sabres.
Our good friend Jeff Iffa right now is going to say you're just jinxing him. You know, he's had a real tough time here down the stretch of the NHL season. He's so scared to believe that his hometown Sabres can actually be doing it. But as one noted big mind in the hockey reporting said, Buffalo's too young and dumb to know that they should be scared. I do like that as a dark horse pick. That's great. As far as like Colorado winning the President's Trophy, they should, by all means, tell them not to even bring it to the arena. That thing is cursed like the Hope Diamond. Because I would say right now, if I had to pick, it's kind of chalky, but we'll say the number 2 overall seed in the tournament, the Carolina Hurricanes. Rod Brindamore, who's the head coach, tough as nails. His team is a reflection of him. But I know this is going to sound really homery on my part, the most interesting first-round matchup. It's at least one of the first-round matchups that we can be certain of, and that's going to be the Pennsylvania State Hockey Championship between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. Obviously, the Penguins, Sidney Crosby, you cannot argue about their pedigree. The Flyers, though, it's amazing. March 10th, they were 9 points out of a wild card spot. Now they're in there, and they're above wild card. They're number 3 in the Metro Conference. So they're coming in hot, young, and maybe they're also too dumb to be scared. So congratulations to them. I'm going to watch every friggin' game and hope it goes 7.
All right, and for my part, when it comes to the NBA, I can't pick against OKC, but in the spirit of fun and slightly more compelling content, if I were to make a small wager, I'd look at the exact result market with OKC over my preseason pick to win the East, the New York Knicks, at 11-1 odds, courtesy of Planetech. And the NHL, very much not my forte, so just 2 quick things here. First off, I wanted to pick the Vegas Golden Knights, and in less than a minute of line shopping across 3 prominent books, I was surprised to see prices ranging from 9-1 to 14-1. So even at this stage of the season, a little legwork can go a long way when it comes to getting the best price. And second here, as much as I like the Golden Knights, I might like Metallica even more. So I'm going to ride the Lightning and take Tampa Bay. One more PSA, shop for the best price. Same 3 books ranging from plus 360 to plus 550 on the Lightning. Joe, part of me is bracing for you to dislike those OKC and Tampa Bay picks for being chalky, but instead of an avalanche of criticism, at least I think you'll appreciate another pick against Colorado to win the Cup.
Man, I tell you, that Annenberg school trained you well, buddy.
I will take that as a seal of approval as we make our way out the door here. As we wrap up, to the audience, whoever you have winning the Larry O'Brien Trophy and the Stanley Cup, enjoy the early stages of the NBA and NHL playoffs. Thanks as always for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Prime Suspects. Register for Prime Sports at primesports.com and download the Prime Sports app. You can follow us on Twitter at PrimeSuspects_, at Joe Brennan Jr., and at Adam Bjorn. You must be 21 or over to play on Prime Sports. Always bet responsibly and within your limits. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.